era where the world's allure beckoned with a siren's call, an estate stood so grand that a visitor once remarked it was akin to a divine creation, limited only by the Almighty's treasury. This was the home of a family whose wealth burgeoned to such heights that it stirred the ire of a nation founded on democratic ideals. Yet, in a twist of fate, they chose to channel their riches back into the soil from which it sprang, sculpting the American landscape one generous act at a time. They were the embodiment of paradox, captains of industry, and yet the most benevolent of benefactors. Their legacy is woven into the tapestry of a country's history. They were the Rockefellers, a name synonymous with fortune and philanthropy, a dynasty that would become as much a part of America's identity as the stars and stripes themselves. Almost akin to a royal family of the country, the Rockefellers stayed away from the limelight, retreating behind the walls of their grand mansion at Pocantico, New York. My childhood memories are of a place that seemed like paradise, serene and beautiful. But as we grew up, some felt it was also like a prison, isolating us from the outside world.
It certainly is the end of one important period for the family. I like to think, though, that there are lots of oncoming members of the family who are going to make a place for themselves, both in the next generation, my children and nieces and nephews, and coming on the fifth and sixth generations. They're really quite remarkable. I don't believe it'll be the same, but I think that there are real possibilities that they will make a place for themselves.
The family was haunted by controversies surrounding John D. Rockefeller, king of Standard Oil, vilified as a ruthless predator, the embodiment of evil. He had created an industrial empire and a personal fortune on a scale the world had never known. For over a century, the wealth and influence of the Rockefeller family have attracted attention and suspicion, threatening to tear the family apart. Why do we want to preserve this problem? Why do we want to devote our lives to maintaining all these institutions that the family has created? What is the purpose of all this? Many have realized that life's problem is integrating power and goodness.
I think it's largely that my siblings and myself had very good parents. I think mother and father complemented one another in a way that was very much to our benefit, and we were...
The steam yacht Wild Duck departed from Providence, Rhode Island on October 9, 1901. On board was John D. Rockefeller, one of the wealthiest individuals in America, along with his family. They were en route to an estate at Warwick Neck, on the western shore of Narragansett Bay. A lavish party awaited the groom's guests, including 500 attendees, prominent figures of the Gilded Age. Journalists gathered outside the gates in anticipation of the wedding between Rockefeller's son, John Jr., and Abby Aldrich, the daughter of an influential senator from Rhode Island. Pinkerton guards were present to safeguard the adorned guests and valuable wedding gifts and carry out a more difficult task. John D. Rockefeller, the creator of Standard Oil, was widely despised in America and characterized as monstrous, wicked, and harsh. He faced constant harassment from journalists and strangers requesting money, leading him to keep a gun by his bedside. Rockefellers received threats of kidnapping and warnings about homemade bombs being sent to their home, creating a sense of constant threat and danger for the family. Finding a way forward for the family would fall to the new bride and the dutiful, obedient son, already burdened by the weight of growing up a Rockefeller.
Brought up to feel responsibility for the fact that we did have more than most people. And Father always said, and I think rightly, that for every opportunity goes an obligation. And I think without preaching that in an offensive way, we've all felt that responsibility and also have had great opportunities.
In the early 19th century, this region in New York was known as the Burned-Over District, not due to literal fire damage, but because of intense Christian revivalism emphasizing hard work, prayer, and charitable acts to establish God's kingdom on earth. John Davison Rockefeller, born in 1839, was raised in this environment of religious zeal, being the second child out of 5 siblings. Eliza Davison Rockefeller, the mother of John D. Rockefeller, was known for her strong religious beliefs, strict demeanor, and disciplined nature. Despite typically being severe and reserved, she had a rare moment of vulnerability when William Avery Rockefeller arrived at her door, selling inexpensive items, with a small slate around his neck that read, "I am deaf and dumb." This was a tactic in his scheme to deceive people, but Eliza, contrary to her usual self, was captivated by the charismatic trickster. He was a wandering man, a peddler selling fake remedies from a cart on the western frontier. People whispered about his free-spirited life, calling him Devil Bill. He came and went as he pleased, never giving advance notice. He could be absent for months, leaving debts at the store. One winter, he ran up a debt of $1,000 at a store, a colossal sum in the 19th century. Yet, he would return often at night, so no one ever knew where he came from. He told stories of his adventures that needed to be more complete to pin down what he had done or where he had done it. The laughter and music of Devil Bill filled the house. He would play with wads of cash, wearing fancy new clothes. Once, he appeared with a patchwork tablecloth made out of banknotes. "The education I received at home was exceptional," John D. recalled his childhood. "From the beginning, it seemed to be a business training." Bill Rockefeller told a neighbor, "I do business deals with my sons, and I always try to cheat them to make them sharp."
He imposed a sense of frugality from what I read.
Yes, he did, but I think here's where he married a wonderful person, my mother, who brought perhaps a little more humanity and humor and sense of fun than perhaps father was brought up with. And the combination of the two, I think, has worked well.
Rockefeller reluctantly embraced the business lessons he received, internalizing them over time. His father provided him with loans at market interest rates, then abruptly called them in without notice to ensure his son had maintained reserves. Through his association with Devil Bill, John D. experienced the excitement of taking significant risks and the attraction of tangible wealth. Eliza instilled in him the disciplined values of her Christian faith: thriftiness, diligence, and self-discipline. Despite being young, he displayed a mature demeanor at school, earning a reputation as Mr. Serious despite possessing a subtle sense of humor. He adhered strictly to rules, preferring orderliness similar to his mother's preferences. Events unfolded according to predetermined schedules, with rewards for good conduct and consequences for misbehavior. In 1849, the Rockefeller family faced a crisis when Bill was accused of assaulting a maid he had employed. Rather than confronting the allegations, he fled, leaving the family alone to deal with the scandal. This incident deeply embarrassed 10-year-old John. It is likely that due to the constant gossip surrounding his father, John D. Rockefeller developed a secretive and self-reliant personality. He adopted a harsh and unyielding demeanor to counteract the rumors circulating in the village. Eliza and her 5 children sought refuge in the local Baptist church. She encouraged young John to contribute his meager earnings to the church collection plate every Sunday.
Well, I think there's a time for private life, and then there's a time for public life and to step forward. And this was really my grandparents' vision. And so it's an amazing time, and it's so exciting to see the public's, reception and appreciation of this incredible sale. And Christie's has done just an amazing job curating it and, protecting our family's privacy, but putting it out to the public in just a spectacular way.
He started to link the church with acts of kindness. A Baptist preacher once advised him to earn as much money as possible and then give away as much as possible. Rockefeller later remembered this moment as the foundation of his financial plan. However, the sound of coins on the collection plate reminded him of his father's shady past. John associated money with the rare occasions when his father returned home with a lot of cash, leading to brief moments of family unity for the Rockefeller. Growing up in constant uncertainty about his father's whereabouts and the family's financial situation made John develop an unusual craving for wealth and security, disliking surprises and striving to control his fate. Fate dealt John D. another harsh blow when he discovered that his father had secretly married another woman under a false identity, hiding it from his mother. To preserve his father's double life, John kept the bigamy hidden. Bill relocated the family to Cleveland before disappearing once again.
Died when I was 21, and I saw a great deal of it. Unfortunately, my other three grandparents all died within a year of the time I was born, so it's only my grandfather Rockefeller that I knew.
Rockefeller was not born with a silver spoon in his mouth. On the contrary, he learned to earn money from simple tasks like raising turkeys and selling candy from a young age. These jobs provided him with his first income and instilled a business spirit from a very early age. With the $50 he saved from these jobs, he made his first investment by lending money at a 7% interest rate, an intelligent move that showed he understood the value of making money work for him. Rockefeller helped with family chores and looked after his siblings. He always aimed for great things, even though he didn't yet know how. At school, his classmates considered him a poor, slow, and bland student. When he succeeded, his friends struggled to remember who he was. I remember John wasn't outstanding in any area. He didn't have anything that made people notice him. But this person also added, I remember he was always hardworking, quiet, and diligent in his studies. Rockefeller was not intelligent, but he was reliable. He persevered in his studies, even though learning was never easy for me. Rockefeller discovered he was good with numbers, though he dropped out of high school to learn more about managing numbers. Enrolling in a 3-month business course at a commercial school, he knew the basics of accounting and banking.
Money is like sex, power, or lust. It's appetite, and it can destroy. I mean, that's what's unique about the Rockefellers. That money was painful legacy for them, but it never destroyed really any of them.
Eager to escape his notorious father and become self-sufficient and independent, Rockefeller left rural Ohio to start his own life in Cleveland and find his first job. He wanted to find a position in a large and prestigious company to learn and grow, so he listed the highest-rated businesses, banks, and companies. Every day, Rockefeller dressed in a dark suit, shaved, and polished his shoes to go job hunting. At each company, he always asked to speak with the head and got straight to the point. I have knowledge of accounting, and I want to work here. The job market at the time was rigorous, and the responses he received could have been better. No one wanted to hire a 16-year-old boy, and few people wanted to talk to him. But the young man was not discouraged. He refused to return home and depend on others. After going through all the companies on the list and still looking for a job, he started over from the beginning of the list and revisited the companies. He even went to some companies 3 times. He viewed the job search as his job. Every day I worked hard. My job was to find a job. I spent all day doing that. From early morning to evening, 6 days a week, Rockefeller continued his job search for 6 weeks. Finally, on September 26, 1855, he heard the words he had been waiting for. We will give you a champ. The small manufacturing company Hewitt & Tuttle needed an accounting assistant urgently and offered Rockefeller the job immediately. From then on, Rockefeller called this Job Day and celebrated it even more than his birthday every year because it was a significant turning point in his life.
In Pennsylvania, in western Pennsylvania in the 1850s, bubbling crude was almost literally coming up from the ground. You could get into the business of crude oil production by buying a farm and drilling a well and striking oil.
In the bustling town of Cleveland, a young man named John D. Rockefeller embarked on a journey that would etch his name in the annals of history. It was 1859, and the air was thick with the spirit of enterprise. With a vision that outshone the brightest star, Rockefeller, alongside Maurice B. Clark and George W. Gardner, formed Clark, Gardner and Company, pooling together a modest capital of $4,000, a sum worth a princely $135,644 today. With only $800 to his name, Rockefeller sought the aid of his father, Big Bill, securing a loan of $1,000 at a steep interest of 10%. It was a gamble that would set the stage for his future empire. The trio prospered, their coffers swelling with profits as the American Civil War raged, creating an insatiable demand for food and supplies. The war, while strife for many, proved a boon for their business, with profits leaping from $4,400 to a staggering $17,000. As the war waned, so did the prospects of wartime profit. It was then that Rockefeller's gaze turned towards the burgeoning oil industry. While his brother bravely fought in the war, Rockefeller remained, steering the ship of their business through tumultuous waters. He was a staunch abolitionist, casting his vote for President Abraham Lincoln and aligning himself with the nascent Republican Party. "God gave me money," proclaimed, unapologetically embracing the Methodist creed to gain all you can, save all you can, and give all you can. The Civil War had ignited an oil drilling frenzy, with prices skyrocketing from $35 to $13.75 per barrel. Amidst this chaos, Rockefeller saw opportunity where others saw waste. In 1863, he and his partners transitioned from foodstuffs to oil, erecting a refinery in Cleveland's industrial heartland. This was no ordinary refinery. While others discarded 40% of the oil as waste, Rockefeller ingeniously repurposed it, selling gasoline, lubricating oil, petroleum jelly, paraffin wax, and other byproducts, transforming waste into wealth. In a pivotal moment in February 1865, Rockefeller seized control of the company, buying out the Clark brothers for $72,500, a move that would define his destiny. With the Civil War behind and the American frontier beckoning, he borrowed heavily, reinvested profits, and adapted swiftly to the shifting sands of the market.
And Oil Town was a very rowdy place to be from. It was dirty, oil was flowing in the streets, also very muddy. There were planks for sidewalks. It was about as rough and uncomfortable an atmosphere as one can imagine.
John D. Rockefeller was not merely a man of wealth. He was a visionary who saw the future in a drop of oil. His story is a testament to the power of perseverance, the foresight to seize the moment, and the relentless pursuit of a dream that would fuel a nation and change the world forever. In 1866, amidst the dynamic spirit of Cleveland, William Rockefeller Jr., brother to John D. Rockefeller, established a new refinery, inviting John into the partnership. Henry Morrison Flagler joined the fold the following year, and the firm of Rockefeller, Andrews, and Flagler came into being. By 1868, through shrewd reinvestment and cost control, the company owned 2 refineries and a New York marketing subsidiary, becoming the world's largest oil refinery. This firm was the precursor to the colossal Standard Oil Company. As the American Civil War drew close, Cleveland emerged as one of the nation's primary refining hubs. By 1869, the kerosene refining capacity far exceeded demand, a surplus that persisted for years. On January 10, 1870, Rockefeller dissolved the partnership of Rockefeller, Andrews, and Flagler, giving birth to Standard Oil of Ohio. His relentless work ethic and pursuit of efficiency rapidly expanded the company, making it Ohio's most profitable refiner and a leading oil and kerosene shipper nationwide. The railroads, vying for traffic, formed the South Improvement Company to control freight rates, offering lucrative deals to major shippers like Standard Oil. This arrangement included significant discounts and rebates, igniting a firestorm of protest from independent oil well owners.
Oil was everywhere. It was on the roads. It was slopping around. It was kind of in the air almost, and it was a kind of element that was just waiting to be controlled by somebody.
The scheme's revelation led to boycotts and vandalism, exposing Standard Oil's involvement. Charles Pratt and Company, led by Charles Pratt and Henry H. Rogers, spearheaded the opposition, prompting railroads to withdraw their support. The Pennsylvania legislature revoked the cartel's charter, temporarily restoring non-preferential rates. Despite the discontent among competitors, Rockefeller's strategies ultimately lowered kerosene prices for American consumers. Unfazed by press vilification, Rockefeller persisted in acquiring inefficient refiners, enhancing operational efficiency, securing oil shipment discounts, and strategically buying out rivals. In a swift campaign called the Cleveland Conquest, or the Cleveland Massacre, Standard Oil assimilated 22 of its 26 Cleveland competitors within 4 months in 1872. Even former adversaries Pratt and Rogers eventually conceded, secretly agreeing to be acquired by Rockefeller in 1874.
I think that John D. Sr. was always reacting, till the last day of his 90-plus years, was reacting against his father. The father was wild, uncontrolled emotion to him. And John D. Rockefeller wanted to put lightning in a bottle. He wanted to control things. He wanted to rationalize them.
Pratt and Rogers became partners in Rockefeller's enterprise, Rogers playing a pivotal role in forming the Standard Oil Trust. Rockefeller's strategy was not to eradicate competition, but to fortify the industry, viewing himself as an angel of mercy. Standard Oil expanded horizontally and vertically, introducing pipelines, tank cars, and a home delivery network, keeping prices low and developing over 300 oil-based products. In 1877, Standard Oil and Thomas A. Scott, president of the Pennsylvania Railroad, clashed. Rockefeller's vision of pipelines as an alternative oil transport led to a fierce price war which Standard ultimately won, compelling the railroad to sell its oil interests. The legal repercussions of Standard Oil's dominance continued, with Rockefeller facing indictments and public scrutiny. Despite his immense fortune, Rockefeller reflected on the anxiety of that era, suggesting that wealth could not compensate for the period's stress and sleepless nights.
The amounts of money that he was dealing with there were to be calculated in pennies and dimes. It was a very small amount of money. And the reason for doing this is that if you have to write it down and see it and you have to account for it, it helps you recognize the value of money.
John D. Rockefeller, driven by a vision of industrial dominance, embarked on a quest to consolidate the oil industry under his control. In 1870, he established Standard Oil of Ohio, setting the stage for a strategic campaign to reshape the American business landscape. Rockefeller's strategy hinged on securing the lowest transportation costs, which he achieved through a covert alliance with railroads known as the South Improvement Company. This pact granted him preferential rates, allowing him to undercut and intimidate competitors, effectively monopolizing the market. The oil regions buzzed with rumors of a conspiracy as independent oilmen, like Ida Tarbell's father, grappled with the sudden shifts in freight rates. The South Improvement Company, previously unknown, now stood exempt from these hikes, fueling suspicions of a grand conspiracy. Rockefeller's approach was multifaceted. He wooed potential acquisitions with flattery and persuasion, presenting Standard Oil as a cooperative brotherhood. Yet, behind this facade, he was prepared to employ aggressive tactics, creating shortages and buying out essential supplies to pressure rivals into submission.
And so Ledger A was a kind of comprehensive sort of record of his inner life, except it has no thoughts, it has no emotions, it has figures. And that's kind of at the core, in a sense, of his character, the inner John D. It's a kind of a severe accountant's mentality.
In 2 months, Rockefeller absorbed 22 of Cleveland's 26 refineries, revealing an unyielding determination that earned him both admiration and fear. His empire expanded stealthily, often operating under the guise of competition, while in reality, it was a singular force, methodically dismantling the independence of the oil industry. By 1879, at age 40, Rockefeller controlled an astonishing 90% of the world's oil refining capacity. His influence extended beyond national borders, establishing a global monopoly over a commodity poised to become the cornerstone of the world economy. Despite his vast wealth, Rockefeller maintained a modest lifestyle, instilling in his children the virtues of simplicity and character. He faced the paradox of immense riches potentially leading to sin, striving to raise his family with the same frugality that had governed his upbringing.
When he went to Cleveland as a young man, his father told him that it really wasn't important for him to go to college. He wanted to go to college, and his father said, no, it would be much better if he went to a trade school, because then he'd learn something useful, where he could earn a living. And so, in fact, he learned to become an accountant.
As the pressures of wealth and philanthropy mounted, Rockefeller retreated to Forest Hill, seeking respite and recovery. He contemplated retirement, a radical departure from the relentless pursuit of power and wealth that had defined much of his life. In the end, Rockefeller's legacy was twofold. He transformed the American business model through his monopolistic practices. He pioneered a new approach to philanthropy that sought to address the root causes of societal challenges. His life's journey from ruthless industrialist to benevolent philanthropist remains a complex and compelling chapter in the annals of American history. As the pressures of wealth and philanthropy mounted, Rockefeller retreated to Forest Hill, seeking respite and recovery. He contemplated retirement, a radical departure from the relentless pursuit of power and wealth that had defined much of his life. In the end, Rockefeller's legacy was twofold. He transformed the American business model through his monopolistic practices. He pioneered a new approach to philanthropy that sought to address the root causes of societal challenges. His life's journey from ruthless industrialist to benevolent philanthropist remains a complex and compelling chapter in the annals of American history.
You can imagine the kind of efficiency that somebody who had done something with his life like Ledger A would bring to an enterprise. One of the things he did, he would go around and see the people soldering the oil barrels, and he found that they were putting 40 drops of solder in. And he said to one guy, he said, "Will you please try 38? And the guy tried it, it didn't work, but 39 did. 39 was perfect. Later on in his life, he would recall this, John D. Rockefeller, and he'd say, "A fortune we saved, a fortune." What he was concerned with was not the fortune he made, but the fortune he saved.
In 1897, John D. Rockefeller stepped back from the day-to-day operations of Standard Oil, retaining only the title of president. This strategic move was largely unnoticed by the public, who continued to view him as the driving force behind the world's most powerful corporation. The decision to maintain his title was partly due to ongoing legal battles, with a senior director quipping that Rockefeller needed to remain officially at the helm in case any executives were jailed. As the family faced intense public scrutiny, Rockefeller Sr. experienced a personal health crisis, losing all his body hair, which aged his appearance significantly. This physical transformation coincided with a resurgence of the scandals surrounding his business practices. Fueled by the investigative journalism of Ida Tarbell and the scrutiny of President Theodore Roosevelt, Tarbell's series in McClure's magazine captivated the nation, painting a vivid picture of the ruthless tactics employed by Standard Oil to crush independent oil company executives. Her expose of the company's collusion with railroads and deceptive practices stirred public outrage and led to a crescendo of anger directed at Rockefeller. Despite the personal attacks and the toll on his family, Rockefeller Sr. remained silent, adhering to his mother's lesson of letting the world wag. Tarbell's character study, which portrayed him in a grotesque light, wounded him deeply, as it seemed to equate his physical condition with moral depravity.
From the beginning, John D. Rockefeller saw that he had a kind of common partner in the railroads. The railroads had an interest in this oil running smoothly, being produced and refined smoothly, so that it didn't come in dribs and drabs and unpredictably. And so he made an arrangement that would profit him and really help destroy the competition. And one of the things he got for himself were rebates. That is, for every barrel of oil shipped, he got a certain number of dollars back off the shipping fee because of the volume that he was shipping. And his competitors, these small competitors, didn't get that. And then he made a further step in the economics of strangulation in coming up with the railroads with this concept of the drawback.
The Supreme Court's 1911 ruling that Standard Oil was a monopoly marked a pivotal moment. Yet, when the news reached Rockefeller Sr. during a golf game, he responded with remarkable composure, humorously advising a priest to invest in Standard Oil. The breakup of the corporation paradoxically increased Rockefeller's fortune, inadvertently making John D. Rockefeller the world's first billionaire. As the electric light bulb threatened the kerosene market, the automobile industry's demand for gasoline sparked a new era in oil, further bolstering Rockefeller's wealth. Sr., now more relaxed and approachable, embraced his retirement, experimenting with wigs and celebrating the births of his grandchildren. However, the family's reputation was soon to face another crisis. In 1913, the coal mines of southern Colorado became the epicenter of a labor dispute involving the Rockefeller-owned Colorado Fuel and Iron Company, CF&I. The strike led to the infamous Ludlow Massacre, where a confrontation between striking miners and National Guardsmen resulted in the deaths of women and children. public opinion swiftly turned against John D. Rockefeller Jr., holding him accountable for the tragedy.
One of the things that I did is that all sorts of things that happened at Standard Oil, which John D. Rockefeller claimed had never happened, or if they had happened, they had been carried out by overly zealous underlings. I was able to directly connect him to all of these various nefarious activities that went on at Standard Oil. To his credit, I was able to connect him much more directly with all of his great philanthropic enterprises, because a lot of people felt that he was detached from them, whereas in fact he was very actively shaping and monitoring them. I think perhaps the single most important thing that I did in this book was that I took somebody who was considered inhuman.
In a bid to address the situation and reform labor relations in America, Jr. testified before a government commission, admitting mistakes and promising to engage directly with the miners. His subsequent visit to Ludlow and his efforts to implement a fair grievance panel marked a significant transformation in his approach to worker relations. Despite his efforts, the weight of the Rockefeller fortune and the responsibility of stewardship proved overwhelming for Jr. He suffered from incapacitating migraines, a testament to the personal toll of his mission to redeem the family name. Meanwhile, Rockefeller Sr. enjoyed a serene retirement, showcasing a lighter side to the public. By the early 1920s, Sr. had transferred nearly $500 million to Jr., entrusting him with the vast fortune and philanthropy task. Jr. invested in various causes, from education and science to the arts and foreign policy, striving to justify wealth accumulation through benevolent actions. Yet, the burden of the Rockefeller legacy continued to loom large, challenging Jr. to balance the immense wealth with his principles and the expectations placed upon him by his father and society. The story of the Rockefellers is a complex tapestry of ambition, controversy, philanthropy, and the relentless pursuit of redemption.
By 1917, he would have been worth $3 billion, which would be more than $30 billion today, and would put him in second place behind Bill Gates. But Bill Gates's wealth only represents 0.5% of the gross national product. Rockefeller's wealth represented 2.5% of the gross national product, which is why people claim with some justice that John D. Rockefeller was the richest man in American history.
The Rockefeller fortune, now estimated at $1 billion, extended its influence into various sectors, with Jr. becoming a philanthropist of formidable stature. His approach to giving mirrored his father's business acumen, sometimes employing similar strategic tactics. As the elder Rockefeller aged, he often mused about living to 100, enjoying a period of vitality and public engagement that contrasted with the earlier chapters of his life. The Rockefeller narrative involves transformation, ambition, and balancing immense wealth with personal values and societal contributions. John D. Rockefeller Sr., once the formidable head of Standard Oil and a figure of public controversy, passed away on March 23, 1937, at his winter home in Ormond Beach. Despite not reaching his centennial goal, he remained content, believing in his peace with God. His life, a blend of work and play, was celebrated at his funeral at Kikuit, the family's emblematic estate. John D. Rockefeller Jr., at 65, reflected on a life marked by philanthropy and the transformation of the Rockefeller name from corporate notoriety to a symbol of generosity and progress. Once a critic, Ida Tarbell acknowledged Jr.'s adherence to his ideals and guidance to his son.
Throughout his life, and he was a very, if you read the earlier biographies, he's almost missing from his own biographies. He's so ghostly, he's so elusive. So I have, in addition to a lot of analysis and information, I introduce hundreds of anecdotes in the book just to try to bring him alive as a person, because in his time, and people don't know this, in his day he was considered not only the richest American, he was considered one of the greatest and most original and most eccentric personalities that the United States had ever produced. And that fascinated me, and I hope that I catch that.
The Rockefeller legacy continued with Nelson Rockefeller, who ventured into politics, becoming the governor of New York. His political journey was a bold move for a family often wounded by public scrutiny. Nelson's vibrant personality and public engagement brought the Rockefellers back into the limelight, creating pride and tension within the family. Nelson's political aspirations soared as he eyed the presidency, but personal decisions, including a remarriage led to a decline in public favor. His presidential hopes dwindled, yet the Rockefeller brothers remained influential figures in American life, with diverse interests ranging from Asian affairs to conservation and global capitalism. The family faced challenges as the younger generation grappled with their identity amidst the social upheavals of the 1960s. Nelson's decision to quell the Attica prison revolt with force resulted in a tragic loss of life, casting a shadow over the family's reputation. As the Rockefellers navigated the complexities of their vast inheritance and societal roles, they continued to shape their legacy, balancing the weight of their wealth with their contributions to the well-being of humanity. The story of the Rockefellers is a testament to the enduring impact of one family's journey through American history and philanthropy.